deep in the remote, jagged reaches of the Himalayas, far beyond where modern explorers or mapping satellites typically venture, there exists a figure who challenges our very understanding of human biology and linear time. This is Mahavatar Babaji, a name whispered with profound reverence by yogis for centuries. He is often described as the deathless guru, a master who has reportedly maintained a youthful physical form for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, appearing and disappearing at will to guide the spiritual evolution of humanity from the shadows. Until the mid-20th century, his existence remained a closely guarded secret held by the masters of the high mountains. That changed irrevocably in 1946, when Paramhansa Yogananda published his landmark work, Autobiography of a Yogi. Through these transformative pages, the global public was introduced to a spiritual lineage that stretched back through the ages, positioning Yogananda as the chosen emissary for this hidden master who remains eternally young. Set your mind back to the early 1900s. The West was in the throes of rapid industrialization and material growth, yet a quiet, profound thirst was developing, a hunger for an ancient Eastern wisdom that could bridge the gap between empirical science and the human soul. Yogananda's arrival in America in 1920 wasn't just the personal journey of a monk. It was a cosmic directive from Babaji himself to disseminate the long-forgotten science of Kriya Yoga to the world. Babaji functions as a silent sentinel, a Mahavatar or great avatar, acting as a hidden stabilizer for the spiritual welfare of all beings. He is the quiet source behind the light Yogananda brought to Western shores, teaching that the path to the divine is a precise physiological science of life force control. As we begin our journey, we step into a space where the boundaries between the physical world and the eternal spirit start to dissolve. To really grasp the bond between Babaji and Yogananda, we have to look at the mechanics of a spiritual revival. For centuries, the science of Kriya Yoga, a sophisticated technique involving the redirection of life force or prana, was essentially hidden. It wasn't just forgotten, it was intentionally preserved in the deep silences of Himalayan caves, passed down only to a select few who had completely renounced the world. But as the 19th century approached, Mahavatar Babaji observed a shift in the collective consciousness. He saw that the modern age, with all its material complexities, needed a bridge back to the divine. This led to a monumental decision. Kriya Yoga would no longer be reserved for the ascetic. It was time to bring it into the marketplace, into the homes of ordinary people. The catalyst for this change was a man named Lahiri Mahasaya. Now, he wasn't a wandering monk. He was a humble accountant, a family man working for the military engineering post of the British government. In 1861, while stationed near Raniket, he was led by a mysterious voice to the heights of Dronagai Mountain. There, in a radiant cave, he met the deathless master. This meeting was the spark. Babaji initiated Lahiri, telling him he was the chosen link to restore this ancient science to humanity. This wasn't just a private blessing, it was the birth of a lineage. Lahiri Mahasaya became the Yogavatar, or incarnation of yoga, proving that one could maintain a job and a family while achieving the highest states of samadhi. From Lahiri, the mantle passed to Swami Sri Yukteswar, who would eventually train Yogananda for his mission to the West. It was a calculated, divine orchestration, a plan to ensure this sacred fire reached every corner of the globe. Before the world knew him as Paramhansa Yogananda, he was simply Mukunda Lal Ghosh, a young boy growing up in India with a heart that seemed too large for his physical frame. While his peers were naturally drawn to the promise of worldly success and academic achievement, Mukunda possessed a singular, insatiable hunger for the divine. For him, the mundane world was a thin veil, and he spent his childhood desperately trying to peek behind it. He didn't just want to hear about God, he wanted to experience the infinite directly. His early years were marked by a series of profound spiritual premonitions and a deep, unexplained magnetism toward the Himalayas. He would often describe a light behind his eyes and memories of previous incarnations as a yogi in those snowy peaks. While other children played, Mukunda was frequently found visiting local saints or attempting to flee to the mountains in search of a master. His family often viewed this as a peculiar obsession, but in reality, it was the manifestation of a soul already in motion. What Mukunda didn't realize at the time was that his every step, every frustrated attempt to find a guru, and every moment of deep meditation was being silently orchestrated. The invisible hand of Mahavatar Babaji was already at work. Babaji, the deathless avatar who remains hidden in the high crags of the Himalayas, had already cast Mukunda in a central role of a cosmic drama. This wasn't just about one boy's salvation. It was about a mission to bridge the vast gap between the mystical East and the materialistic West. Mukunda was the chosen instrument, being meticulously prepared by a master he hadn't yet met to bring the scientific technique of Kriya Yoga to the entire world. In the autumn of 1861, a profound shift occurred in the spiritual history of the modern world, high in the Himalayas. Lahiri Wahasaya, an ordinary accountant for the British Military Engineering Department, was suddenly transferred to Ranikhet. While wandering the sun-drenched slopes of Mount Rampiri, he heard a mysterious voice calling his name with intimate familiarity. Following the sound to a hidden cave, he encountered a radiant, youthful figure who vibrated with a celestial, ancient energy. This was the deathless Mahavatar Babaji. Babaji revealed a startling truth. He had been Lahiri's guru across many previous incarnations, watching over him with the silent vigilance of a protective guardian. To initiate Lahiri and simultaneously fulfill a latent, worldly desire for luxury that still lingered in his disciple's subconscious, Babaji performed an act of staggering yogic power. He materialized a magnificent golden palace, encrusted with brilliant jewels, right there in the rugged wilderness. After Lahiri spent a single transformative night in the celestial abode, the palace vanished into the ether, its purpose served. The desire was finally extinguished, replaced by a profound divine realization. This meeting was the ultimate catalyst for the modern Kriya Yoga movement. Babaji formally initiated Lahiri into the sacred science of Kriya, a technique that had been largely lost to the masses for centuries. Babaji issued a revolutionary command. Lahiri was to return to his life as a householder and share these formerly secret techniques with all sincere seekers, regardless of their caste, creed, or social status. This shattered the traditional barriers of reclusive asceticism. It signaled a new era where the highest spiritual attainments were accessible to anyone living in the heart of society. This singular encounter near Ranikhet laid the foundation for the global spread of Kriya Yoga.
The title Mahavatar carries a weight that is almost difficult to grasp. In Sanskrit, Maha means great, and avatar signifies a descent, a divine being who takes on a physical form to assist humanity. But Babaji isn't just an avatar, he is the great avatar. What makes his existence so unique, as Paramhansa Yogananda detailed in his writings, is the sheer mastery he possesses over the physical plane. Babaji doesn't just inhabit a body, he maintains it through the absolute mastery of prana, or life force. Yogananda explained that Babaji has transcended the biological necessities that define our human experience. He does not require food, water, or sleep to sustain his physical presence. Imagine the spiritual mechanics involved here, a state where the cellular decay and metabolic processes we consider inevitable are completely arrested and superseded by divine energy. He can dematerialize and rematerialize his form at will, essentially rearranging the atomic structure of his body to appear or disappear instantly. It is a level of spiritual science that suggests the physical body is merely a projection of consciousness that can be manipulated by a realized will. Perhaps the most moving aspect of Babaji's story is his solemn vow. While most enlightened masters eventually shed their physical forms to remain in higher astral spheres, Babaji chose a different path. He made a promise to stay in his body for the duration of this current world cycle, known as a Mahayuga. He does this to help navigate the planet through its darkest spiritual periods, acting as a constant, hidden source of light. He is the deathless guru, standing as a bridge between the divine and the mundane, ensuring that the ancient science of Kriya Yoga remains accessible to those who seek it, regardless of the era.
The spiritual lineage between Mahavatar Babaji and Paramhansa Yogananda wasn't just a direct transmission. It was reinforced by a pivotal encounter involving Yogananda's own guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar. In 1894, during the Kumbh Mela festival in Allahabad, Sri Yukteswar was walking along the banks of the Ganges when he encountered a man who appeared to be a humble sadhu. To his astonishment, he realized he was in the presence of the deathless master, Mahavatar Babaji. This meeting was far more than a social visit. Sri Yukteswar, known for his formidable intellect and rigorous logic, was at that time grappling with specific doubts regarding the harmony between Eastern and Western scriptures. Babaji, reading his thoughts instantly, addressed these intellectual barriers. He explained that there is an underlying essential unity between the Christian Bible and the Hindu Bhagavad Gita. He told Sri Yukteswar that the truth is one, though expressed in different languages and cultures. Babaji then gave Sri Yukteswar a specific command: write a short book showing this parallel. This resulted in the profound work titled The Holy Science, or Kaivalya Darsanam. In this book, Sri Yukteswar mapped out the Yuga cycles, correcting common misconceptions about the current age, and systematically compared the teachings of Jesus Christ with the Sankhya philosophy of India. This was a strategic move by Babaji. By tasking Sri Yukteswar with this project, he was essentially building the philosophical bridge that Yogananda would later cross. The Holy Science provided the intellectual foundation for Yogananda's future mission in America, allowing him to present Kriya Yoga not as a foreign religion, but as a universal science of the soul that complemented the core of Western spiritual traditions. It transformed a local lineage into a global bridge. At the 1894 Kumbh Mela in Allahabad, a pivotal meeting occurred between Mahavatar Babaji and Swami Sri Yukteswar that would change the spiritual landscape of the planet. This was a cosmic briefing. During this meeting, Babaji issued a specific and prophetic mandate to Sri Yukteswar. He was to train a disciple who would eventually carry the ancient, sacred message of yoga to the West. Babaji's foresight was staggering. He looked at the industrial culture of the Western world and recognized a fundamental imbalance. The West was rapidly mastering the outer world through modern physics and engineering, yet it remained spiritually parched. However, Babaji understood something crucial. Modern minds would never be satisfied by mere dogma or blind faith. To reach these people, spirituality couldn't be abstract. It had to be a verifiable, practical science. Babaji explicitly told Sri Yukteswar that a disciple would be sent to him for specific, intense training. That disciple was Mukunda Lal Ghosh, later known as Paramhansa Yogananda. But the training Sri Yukteswar provided wasn't just about chanting or philosophy. It was a rigorous preparation designed to hone Yogananda's intellect to a razor's edge, enabling him to speak the Western language of logic and proof. This mission was about introducing Kriya Yoga not as a religion, but as a practical spiritual technology. Babaji saw that the scientific temperament of the West needed a method that could be tested in the laboratory of one's own consciousness. Yogananda was the living fulfillment of this prophecy, the bridge between high Himalayan peaks and the noisy laboratories of the West, proving to all that inner realization can be every bit as precise as any verifiable, complex mathematical equation. Imagine the stifling heat of a Calcutta afternoon in 1920. A young monk named Mukunda, soon to be known to the world as Paramhansa Yogananda, sat in his small room, paralyzed by a very human emotion, profound self-doubt. He had just received an invitation to represent India at the International Congress of Religious Liberals in Boston. This was the moment his guru, Sri Yukteswar, had spent years preparing him for. Yet, as he looked at the steamship ticket, a wave of uncertainty crashed over him. He questioned if he, a product of the silent, meditative ashrams of the East, could truly bridge the immense cultural and spiritual chasm of the West. How could the ancient, subtle science of Kriya Yoga translate to a society driven by industrialism and logic? In the depths of this crisis, Yogananda turned to intense prayer and meditation, seeking a sign. Suddenly, the atmosphere of his room shifted, becoming vibrant and electrically charged. Standing before him was not a fleeting vision, but a physical, tangible manifestation of the deathless master, Mahavatar Babaji.
This encounter was a pivotal intersection of history and mysticism. Babaji, whose very existence is often shrouded in legend, spoke with a voice that instantly stilled Yogananda's racing heart. He looked at the young monk and said, "You are the one I have chosen to spread the message of Kriya Yoga in the West. Long ago, I promised your guru that I would send a disciple to the Americas, and you are that soul." This wasn't just words of encouragement, it was a formal transfer of spiritual authority. Babaji assured Yogananda that he would be protected and guided across the ocean. In that instant, the weight of doubt evaporated, replaced by a crystalline certainty. He realized he was not acting on his own limited will, but as an emissary of a divine lineage. This direct encounter provided Yogananda with the spiritual bedrock he needed, giving him the unshakable confidence to board that ship and spend the next 3 decades transforming the spiritual landscape of the United States.
When Yogananda stepped onto the pier in Boston in 1920, he wasn't just bringing an exotic philosophy from the East. He was carrying a direct, living transmission from a lineage hidden in the high Himalayas. He framed Kriya Yoga for a Western audience not as a new religion, but as a scientific method for human development. He famously called Kriya a spiritual airplane, a psychological and physiological technique designed to accelerate human evolution. To explain this, he often used a mathematical metaphor. 1/2 minute of Kriya practice is equivalent to 1 year of natural spiritual growth. By practicing this specific technique of breath and energy control, a devotee could theoretically achieve in a single lifetime what nature would take 1,000,000 years to accomplish through slow, unconscious evolutionary cycles. Throughout his decades of teaching in the United States, Yogananda was always careful to deflect personal credit. He frequently referred to Mahavatar Babaji as the supreme director of the entire mission. He emphasized that the Self-Realization Fellowship was not a cult of personality centered around himself, but a conduit for the power flowing from the deathless master in the mountains. Yogananda would tell his students that Babaji had personally appeared to him before his departure for America, promising that he would be protected and that the message of Kriya Yoga would spread like wildfire across the West. This connection was Yogananda's secret weapon. He taught that the human spine is the altar of God, and by circulating life force through the central nervous system, the brain becomes spiritually magnetized. This was the science behind the soul. For Yogananda, every lecture he gave and every center he established was ultimately overseen by Babaji, ensuring that the ancient wisdom of the rishis found a permanent home in the modern world. To understand the immortal presence of Babaji, we have to look at the specific engine behind his manifestation, the science of Kriya Yoga. This isn't just a set of religious rites. Yogananda described it as a precise psychophysiological method. At its biological core, Kriya involves a technique where the human blood is chemically decarbonized and instantly recharged with a fresh supply of oxygen. Think of it as a super efficient internal combustion engine for the soul. By flooding the system with this refined energy, the yogi can effectively neutralize the breath. This is where the profound physiological shift happens. When the breath is stilled, the heart naturally follows. In a normal state, our hearts are constantly pumping to move carbon dioxide out and oxygen in. But Kriya bypasses this physical necessity. As the heart rate slows to a near stop, the practitioner gains the ability to direct prana, or life energy, directly through the spine and the brain's higher centers. Yogananda explained that this process eventually transforms the cells into pure energy. It's why he referred to it as the science of longevity. By withdrawing energy from the external senses and the frantic demands of the organs, the yogi centers their consciousness in the cerebral spinal centers. This is how Babaji has maintained his physical across centuries. He has mastered the art of cellular suspension through divine energy control. It's a mathematical approach to enlightenment. Instead of waiting for the slow, natural evolution of the human brain over millennia, Kriya Yoga accelerates the process. It offers a path to achieve a state of divine consciousness where the body is no longer a prison or a decaying vessel, but a controlled projection of the spirit. It bridges the gap between the finite human experience and the infinite life force that Babaji embodies. In 1946, the spiritual landscape of the modern world was fundamentally altered by the publication of Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of a yogi.
Before this seminal work, Mahavatar Babaji existed almost exclusively within the shroud of secret oral traditions in the private experiences of a few advanced Himalayan masters. But through Yogananda's vivid, elegant prose, the deathless guru was suddenly introduced to a global audience, transforming from a hidden legend into a profound beacon of spiritual possibility for millions of seekers across the planet. Yogananda provided what are still considered the most detailed and authoritative accounts of Babaji ever written. He didn't just describe a man, he described an eternal state of being. He shared the profound encounter at 4 Garpar Road in Calcutta, where Babaji appeared to him, validating his sacred mission to bring the science of Kriya Yoga to the West. This wasn't just hagiography, it was a spiritual roadmap. The book's impact was staggering, reaching far beyond ashrams. It sat on the nightstands of cultural icons, influenced the perspectives of modern scientists, and famously was the only book Steve Jobs had downloaded on his personal iPad, which he reportedly reread every single year. What Yogananda achieved was a bridge between the ancient and the modern. By documenting the miraculous, such as Babaji's ability to manifest a physical form across centuries, he presented a radical thesis that the human soul possesses an ultimate potential that defies biological decay. Through the lens of this text, Babaji became a symbol of the Jivan Mukta, the liberated soul. It proved that the barrier between the human and the divine is far thinner than our rational minds imagine. For the modern seeker, the book serves as a living invitation to realize that same divinity within themselves, suggesting that the heights reached by a Mahavatar are the eventual destiny of all mankind.
How do you describe someone who has surpassed the boundaries of time? For many, the image of Mahavatar Babaji is inextricably linked to the vivid descriptions provided by Paramhansa Yogananda in his classic autobiography of a yogi. These specific details have since become the definitive standard for devotees worldwide. Yogananda noted a striking physical resemblance between Babaji and his direct disciple, Lahiri Mahasaya. However, there is one profound difference. While Lahiri Mahasaya aged as men do, Babaji is said to possess a deathless form, appearing as a youth of about 25 years old. He is described with long, dark hair and a radiant, golden complexion that seems to glow from within. This isn't just a cosmetic detail. In the yogic tradition, it signifies a body completely saturated with the light of the soul, or prana. When he interacts with others, Babaji speaks very little. His presence is so immense that verbal language is often unnecessary. Instead, he communicates through telepathy or subtle, intuitive signs that resonate directly in the heart of the seeker. The accounts of his mastery over the physical world are staggering. Witnessing disciples have described him moving across deep, fresh snow without leaving a single footprint, defying the laws of mass and gravity as we understand them. Furthermore, he is known to sit in deep samadhi for weeks on end, completely motionless and beyond the reach of the external environment. In these states, the physical body ceases to be a biological machine and becomes a mere reflection of pure spirit, a localized manifestation of the infinite. For Yogananda, these descriptions weren't just about appearance. They were evidence of a level of mastery where the spirit has total dominion over the atomic structure of the flesh. Perhaps the most mind-bending revelation shared by Yogananda is what he called the cosmic alliance. This isn't just a casual collaboration. Yogananda claimed that Mahavatar Babaji is in constant direct communion with Jesus Christ. According to Autobiography of a Yogi, these two colossal spiritual figures are working in tandem to send out vibrations of redemption to the entire world. Think about the gravity of that for a moment. A legendary Himalayan yogi and the central figure of Christianity operating together on a celestial plane. Yogananda explained that their partnership was specifically designed to bridge a massive spiritual divide. They reportedly planned the spiritual technique of salvation for this modern age to harmonize two distinct human approaches: the East's profound focus on internal meditation and the West's dynamic focus on external service and social progress. They are essentially fine-tuning the spiritual frequencies of the planet, ensuring that the ancient science of yoga finds a home in the bustling industrial West. Yogananda pointed out that without the inner peace found in meditation, Western service can become empty or burnout-prone. Conversely, without the West's drive for external betterment, Eastern meditation might lead to social stagnation. By weaving these two together, Babaji and Jesus are creating a blueprint for a balanced global civilization. This suggests that Babaji's influence is a universal force that transcends any single dogma or religious institution. In this view, he isn't just a Hindu master, he is a cosmic guardian for all humanity. It's a radical idea that the spiritual evolution of the planet is being guided by a hidden boardroom of masters who see humanity as one single, struggling, but ultimately divine family, pushing us toward a future where our internal and external lives are finally in sync. While the historical arc of the Kriya Yoga lineage is undeniably awe-inspiring, Paramhansa Yogananda was always careful to bring the Mahavatar down from the misty, unreachable peaks of legend into the warm, lived reality of the human heart. He shared intimate stories that painted Babaji not just as a silent, ancient guardian of the ages, but as a dynamic and active source of grace. Yogananda spoke vividly of Babaji appearing to disciples in moments of extreme physical danger or spiritual despair. Imagine standing on the precipice of a life-altering crisis and suddenly feeling an inexplicable, radiant presence that fundamentally shifts the trajectory of events. These were not mere coincidences to Yogananda. They were direct evidence of Babaji's omnipresence. There are profound accounts of instantaneous healing, where those who called upon him with a specific frequency of sincerity, a state of total, undistracted surrender, found their physical or mental ailments dissolved in an instant. Yogananda explained the mechanics of this as a spiritual law. When the human will aligns perfectly with divine receptivity, the Mahavatar's intervention becomes inevitable. He often reminded his students that the distance between a devotee and Babaji isn't measured in Himalayan miles, but in the density of one's own mental restlessness. This is the most crucial distinction Yogananda made. Babaji is not a remote, unapproachable deity sitting in judgment. Instead, he is a living brother-friend. He is the elder sibling on the arduous spiritual path, intimately aware of the specific struggles of every soul seeking the light. By sharing these stories of intervention, Yogananda bridged the gap between the finite and the infinite, proving that while the Mahavatar remains physically hidden, his consciousness is a boundless field of love, accessible to all. The legacy of Mahavatar Babaji and Paramhansa Yogananda isn't just confined to the pages of history or the chapters of a famous book. It thrives today through the global reach of the Self-Realization Fellowship and the Yogoda Satsanga Society of India. These organizations serve as more than just administrative hubs. They are the formal custodians of the Kriya Yoga science. When Babaji revived this ancient technique, he didn't just want it to be a secret for Himalayan recluses. He specifically chose Yogananda to be the bridge to the modern world, ensuring that these exact methods were preserved without dilution. What makes this lineage so vibrant today is its focus on spiritual precision. Kriya Yoga is often described as a psychophysiological method by which human blood is decarbonized and recharged with oxygen. The institutions Yogananda founded ensure that the technical nuances, the specific pranayama, the focus on the spiritual eye, and the internal circulation of energy remain untainted by personal interpretation. It is a science of the soul, intended to accelerate human evolution. But the legacy goes deeper than institutional preservation. If you speak to Kriyabans, those initiated into these techniques, many describe something remarkably consistent, a tangible, guiding presence during deep meditation. It is a phenomenon that defies simple psychological explanation. Practitioners often report a profound sense of being watched over or guided by the Mahavatar himself. This suggests that the link between Babaji and Yogananda isn't just a historical event. Instead, it functions as an active, living channel of spiritual transmission. In this tradition, the guru-disciple relationship transcends time and space. The organizations provide the map, but the energy flowing through the techniques remains the direct result of that eternal promise Babaji made, to remain in his physical body as a silent supervisor for all who seek the light. As we reach the conclusion of this journey into the life and legacy of Mahavatar Babaji and Paramhansa Yogananda, we reflect on a profound, eternal promise. Babaji told his disciples, "I shall always remain visible to at least a small number of people on this earth." This is not merely a mystical claim or a piece of folklore. It is a testament to the continuity of divine guidance that persists beyond the limitations of time and space. Throughout Yogananda's life and his seminal work, he emphasized a crucial truth that many seekers inadvertently miss. We often imagine the spiritual path involves trekking through the physical peaks of the Himalayas to find a hidden cave or a secluded master. However, the story of the Mahavatar teaches us that the true ascent happens within. It is the internal ascent of the spine, specifically the energy flowing through the Sushumna Nadi, achieved through the disciplined practice of deep meditation and Kriya Yoga. In this sacred science, the spine is viewed as the altar where the human soul finally meets the infinite consciousness. The story of Babaji and Yogananda serves as a powerful reminder that the miraculous is not a relic of ancient history. It is a living, breathing reality. A silent, deathless master continues to watch over the world, not waiting for us to discover a specific geographical location, but for each individual soul to awaken to its own inherent divinity. This relationship illustrates a spiritual technology, the process of neutralizing the breath, calming the heart, and expanding awareness. Ultimately, Yogananda demonstrated that we are not the physical vessels we inhabit, but the eternal light shining through them. Babaji remains a silent guardian, waiting for the moment we choose to look inward and discover that the kingdom of God is truly within.